Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Brits for Ukraine. I'm Alex Kinash. I think this is episode 3. I can't remember because it's been a while since I last did one. It is actually. I've already done a couple already. One with my friend Harry from the Foreign Legion, with Naomi, who's on Twitter, that's like does super cool stuff around making teddies and helping out the fundraisers for Ukraine. And today I've got Mr. Tom, um, who we'll get into in a little bit. But just to give you a bit of background around what this is about, I have Ukrainian heritage myself, which is why I've committed a lot of my time to helping them defend their country and fight off the illegal full-scale Russian invasion. But I'm intrigued about why other people, especially from Great Britain, have dedicated so much time and money and their hearts to helping out that country. And Tom, with me today, is certainly one of those people. So I want to spend a little bit of time learning about him and why he's got so stuck in. So Tom, thanks very much for bothering to turn up to speak to me.
It's great, Alex. No, thanks for having me. And it's obviously, as a British person, there's nothing we love more than talking about our own selves and achievements and been really not humble and stuff. It's totally within our national identity to do that kind of stuff. So I'll have no problems with this conversation at all.
Absolutely. I mean, we are mostly here to stroke our ginormous egos
Yeah,
and pat ourselves on the back for how wonderful we are. So,
absolutely.
I mean,
That's just answered. You've just finished the interview because that's the whole reason why I've done what I've done. So that there we go. Moving
yeah,
on.
I don't really know where we go from here, but we've got to try and pad it out because I'm sure like 2 or 3 people might bother watching and want to know something else. So, I mean, maybe let's start with like who are you?
Yeah, good question. Well, I'm Tom Lads. I'm a 35-year-old, I think, although getting to that age where I can't really remember anymore. I'm a self-employed agricultural finance broker, which is very exciting, but it's
Wow.
a self-employed job. So I'm one of these fortunate people that actually has quite a bit of flexibility with time and whatnot. So that's a pretty big reason why I've been able to get involved in the way that I have with Ukrainian stuff. I'm also, not that I talk about it a lot, a dad to 2 young boys, which is another big reason why I got involved with the things that I've got involved with. Yeah, that's essentially who I am.
What so Tom, like what have you done for Ukraine?
Um, so nearly all of it, and much as we can get into the new owner of Twitter's impact on the war and other things, but without social media, probably like a lot of people, probably almost not everyone, but the vast majority that are now involved, the war, the full scale war would have kicked off. I'd have donated some money to the usual, Red Cross and Médecins Sans Frontières, those kind of things, because I've always been, because of our family, we've always been charitably minded. We always, donate to things. But you'd have given some money. I'm a news hound, so I'd have followed the news and things like that. But without the the connection you can create with social media, that would have been it, And I'd have probably been like a lot of people, donated some money, kept interested, but it just falls into the background of the news agenda. It's just item 7 in the list, and you kind of lose engagement with it. But because of especially Twitter, you feel much closer to what's going on. You feel much more engaged with it, and the amazing people that are doing so many different incredible things in Ukraine um, means you can do tangible things. You can do, depending on your time and money and availability and whatnot, you can, as you've spoken to people that have literally gone out to fight or who are back in the UK doing tons of things, taking in refugees. There's so many different things, and you get inspired by seeing what people are doing, and it's kind of a like a positive feedback loop. You just feel more engaged, more committed, and more able to do things, however big or small they might be. So it was, I can't remember when I first saw Ragnar, uh, Ragnar Sass, as started taking over pickup trucks. And I'm sure there was something on Twitter of a convoy coming from the UK. They'd bought a load of British pickup trucks and driven them over.
Yeah.
Um, and I can't remember, that was mid 2022. I can't remember when they did that at some point. Um, and I just engaged with it. Got a guy's email contacts and was saying, this is cool. How, I work in farming. There's lots of pickup trucks around here. What are you looking for? How can I help? And it just from there went to, being able to talk to people and find out pickup trucks completely unknown to me were massively in demand. And that's where I got involved through the Sniffing Brigade pickup truck campaigns. And got some pickup trucks in October. Didn't get my wife's permission to drive over because at the time it was a bit sketchier, but got 2 trucks which got taken over. And again, you just get more, pictures and feedback, and you just get so much more engagement with it. So it kind of snowballed from there. But yeah, despite all the issues we have with Mr. Musk and Twitter and everything, this war would not have had anywhere near the amount of attention and support I think that it's had globally from people, because we can keep engaged and reach out and talk to each other.
I think the everyone's trying to do their bit, and what we're doing in the grand scheme of things is pretty small in the grand scheme of the full scale war, right? But we just sort of chip away. But you're not you're not just like buying patches for one of my campaigns, for example, though, Tom. Like, you're literally buying entire trucks, right? Isn't that right? Isn't that what you're doing?
Some of the time. And again, it's a scalable thing. You're aware that it's, you've been there plenty of times. I've been there twice, and you're aware that a used pickup truck is not going to change the fortunes of the war. But yeah, I'm engaged. I'm in a workplace that has lots of pickup trucks. The farming community has lots of pickup trucks. They're cheaper over here than what you see them being bought for in Eastern Europe, because the numbers of them out here. So yeah, it's something I can, I can more easily do than other things. And it's a selfish thing to say, but with a truck, I don't know how you feel, but there's so many different things they all need. But a pickup truck is something that you feel a bit more attached to. You can imagine people driving it. You know how useful it is. You feel, a drone is about the similar price of a truck, and probably might be more needed or on the same level as need. It depends on what the units are up to. But trucks to me feel like you're actively helping someone. You can imagine how that help has been used, and you can see how it's been used. And yeah, it's kind of a really, it's more of an emotional connection I feel with things like trucks. I'm not saying I have like a weird connection to pickup trucks, but you know what I mean. It's cars and trucks. You can see how people need them and what they can be used for.
I mean, I like trucks, just like you. So, and I've always liked vehicles. So I do, doing trucks is cool because I like automobiles. I think it's quite a big ticket item, so it's, see, transporting people around, rescuing people in them with, Cassivac trucks. That's really, really important work that, the soldiers and the medics that we give them to have to carry out. I think, like you said, we've been there a few times, and the one thing that is always number one on everyone's list is vehicles. Which it's good that we do our little bit to help along with everyone else that helps. It's completely bonkers that they're not just getting trucks delivered by manufacturers at scale, that are funded by governments, etc. I don't quite understand why we haven't paid Toyota Hilux to deliver 10,000 brand new Hiluxes to Ukraine.
Well,
it doesn't make any sense, does it?
No, but I think, and it's another reason why I'm involved the way I am, is I'm a history buff, and especially military history stuff. And you kind of, any war that you read about, especially modern wars, they're so resource hungry. They suck up so much stuff. And again, having been there, you see, you can read all the stuff you can read and watch all the videos, but when you see how big the country is, how many people are involved, it's staggering how much is needed. And wars, they're bottomless pits. You can pour in as much as you want, but there's never enough because it's just so resource hungry. And when you read about, my granddad was in the Second World War, as were nearly all of my great uncles and whatnot. There's so much stuff that every military needs at any point, and yeah, we can get into what our governments and the West has or hasn't done. Not enough, clearly not, but there'd never be enough. And Ukraine, it's a developing country, isn't it? In many respects, it's a country that is nowhere near the level that we're at, and that pickup that you think, oh, some clapped out, 15-year-old thing. It's an absolute godsend in a lot of scenarios, isn't it? So it's, even if our governments were doing 10 times what they are doing, which I'd love them to do, I think we'd still be doing what we're doing. They're just at a different scale of, you're on the kind of small units you're helping out. They're always going to need it. There's never going to be enough.
But so why are you doing it though, Tom? Like,
it's so I was sat. I mean, I've been aware of the war since 2014. Like I say, I'm a news obsessive, politics obsessive, especially military stuff. So you knew that something was happening. Russia has been the bad guy since, well, how far back do we go? But it's been there for a long time. And I was sat with he was 4 months old at the time, I think, about, I don't know, 4 a.m, sat with my 4-month-old second son, sat looking at Twitter, as you do at that time of the day. And yeah, that's when the full-scale invasion started. And then I was listening to Nick Robinson on Radio 4, jets flying over Kyiv, and there he is in a hotel basement in the bombing. And it was just so, you kind of feel like things improve as time goes by. Generally, history gets, we look back and you think, wow, that was bonkers. Why did we do all these stupid things? Wars are always going to happen, but the idea of a nation on nation war in Europe just seemed absolutely insane. Just even for Ukrainians and people in the intelligence establishment, you could just tell, despite all the evidence, people thought there's no way that this will happen because it just is illogical, totally insane, clearly insane. So when it started, and all this came back, all the ideas of, well, actually, these things do happen. Wars like this can kick off. And yeah, as we can get into, Russia has never had its arse handed to it to tell it to not do this kind of stuff. You realize, wow, this is serious, and we need to help them win. And it's a kind of, yeah, when you meet the Ukrainian people and the soldiers in particular, yeah, you want them to win for their own needs, for their own country, absolutely. But it's a selfish thing. You want this war won and done because it's, the whole Western idea has been attacked, and if we don't stand up and do something about it, then it can all slip away pretty quickly.
I think there's a lot of people that agree with that are involved. Yeah, I think that's why we've got so much support at a government level, definitely. I think, like you say, that over time it drops out the news, so people in general don't remember it still happening, and they go back to worrying about their own problems, and they probably just want it to end. But I think, yeah, certainly, unless you actually go there and then spend any time there, you don't really get your head around what a full-scale war's like until you go into a war zone, do you? It's nothing like on the news. It's nothing like that at all. And it's not, you can't just turn it off once it started. And certainly, I think when you go down a certain line, right, and in this instance, the amount of bloodshed that's happened, you're not just going to give up.
No.
And I think that's the bit, isn't it, is that Ukraine was fighting this war for nearly 10 years now, before all the Western support and heavy weaponry, and it's not going to stop because of it not getting any support continuing on, basically.
No.
And it's go on.
Well, I was going to say, again, with my history hat on and stuff, you think, oh, this has gone on for a long time. And yeah, people have lost. I'm pretty sure if you went back to 1942 Britain, the vast majority of people wouldn't really know what was going on, wouldn't really care. They just fancy it being over. But when you look at the timescale of things, this has been an eye blink since 2022. The length of the war so far, Russia can sit this out for several more years. The second, Hitler had only done a few bits in Europe by this point in the mid-30s. These things take a long time to to play out, and it's staying the course. And as we've seen in the news recently, we're all democracies in the West, mostly to varying degrees, and we lose interest. Different priorities come up, and different games are played. That's not the Russian model. They have one person in charge, and they will stay laser-like on it. And we just have to, yeah, as you say, having been there, that makes such a big difference to talking to people when you've physically seen it. I've only been to Kyiv. I'm well aware that that's not the war in itself when you know the places you've been, but you see what it means for a country. I mean, just on one small thing, as I say, I've got a 5-year-old at a primary school. I wasn't aware after you told me when you've been in Kyiv about the fact that most Ukrainian schools hadn't reopened since 2020. And just on a small, when you speak to people about that, that's not in the news. I'm not saying it's been deliberately ignored or anything, but that's something that, as a kind of parent and someone in a normal country, you think that's insane, and that's because of people bombing cities. It's absolutely bonkers, and you just need that going. I think that's the thing that the truck convoys, and I can understand why it's such a big, so much effort's made for getting these trucks out. You could just send them on lorries. You could just do a convoy like that without having all these different people from across Europe driving to Ukraine. But the difference it makes to physically get people out there who are already committed supporters to see what's happening is absolutely astonishing what it can do.
I completely agree, Tom. I think, because there has been comments in the past around why don't you just send them on a truck transporter? Well, yeah. There's a number of reasons why, isn't there? As you've seen firsthand, is one, you've paid for your trucks, right? You drive them out there, you meet the soldiers, and they are immensely grateful to meet a British man that has bothered to come here and stand by their sides and say, we've got your back. Yeah. That will motivate them more than anything. In fact, we know for a fact that there is a significant morale boost for the entire Ukraine armed forces because they have got their Western weaponry. They think that Europe has its back, and they know it has, and that makes a big difference. It also helps us in our fundraising, and because once you go there and you meet these people and you realize that you have helped them, it commits you even more to doing more, right? So
totally.
That's happened to me, it's happened to you, it's happened to the other people that we take out there, that it actually means that they do more for Ukraine.
Absolutely.
And so it's an important thing for everyone involved. I think it binds us more together again.
Yeah. I think the most valuable thing, like you say, you don't want to, when you meet the troops in particular, you don't want gratitude or, as one of them said to me, he said, you're spending your money, we're spending our lives. And it's, that already, but when someone says it to you, it really drives it home. But it's you feel so privileged to be able to, stand with those guys who are going through things you can't imagine, and being able to say to them, again, I go back to what it would have been like before social media, before you could have got involved in the way you can now. You'd have, maybe written a letter or something, but to physically touch them and say, we're with you as much as we can be, makes a difference to me, and it makes a difference to a lot of people, I think.
Yes, and I like the people that we work with in our charity on the whole, because it's not about us. No. Right? There's no ego or interest in gratitude, because you think you said it so well there. No, we're not actually doing anything, right? No. We're delivering vehicles, but we're delivering them because people are dying and they need them, and they're the people that this is all about. And it's I do wish sometimes that all the people involved in helping Ukraine had those interests in that way, because there's quite a variety of characters involved.
Certainly,
but I don't mind overall, because ultimately everyone is trying to help Ukraine, mostly.
And as you say, there's lots of different approaches taken by lots of different people with how they record what they're doing or talk about what they're doing to help. End of the day, someone's helping more than even the most supposedly toxic of people that have helped Ukraine for their own personal needs, and they've done more than most people. And when you come back, you go to and from Ukraine for much longer periods than me. I'm barely in there for 10 minutes before I've hightailed it out there again. But when you come back to your safe country and your house that is perfectly intact, and you can go to bed at night knowing everything's going to be in the same place in the morning pretty much. And you talk to people, I mean, I had it this weekend where you talk to people who, even people you think are fairly well across the news and things like that, and you realize how far it slipped out of their agenda, and how far people, and I'm not striking them off, people, everyone's got different things going on in their lives, and it's a long way away, and it can feel mostly irrelevant, a war all that way over there. But when you talk to people about what's happening and why it matters, again, it's only a tiny drop in a massive ocean, but you can be so much more driven, and you talk with so much more authority when you say, I've seen X, I've seen Y, this is why it matters. Whereas if you just said, oh, I've seen some videos on Twitter, well, who cares about that? You're talking from the heart with these things way more.
Totally, Tom. Totally. And so what's next then? Are you because you're right, I obviously spend more time there, but that's one, I'm starting to live there soon. But also I'm a single man, right? Like if I had a wife and kids back in England and was driving trucks into a war zone, I'm sure that I would be feeling a lot more precious to return back to the safety of the UK as well, mate. So I don't think that's it's not a fair comparison, right? Basically, but what do you want to do next? Are you cracking on? Are you moving into jets or tanks?
I've got not that you can see in here, but there's some stuff with a truck that's again just out of shot that's going over, driven by some really great guys that have driven with me on previous convoys. That's a sniffing brigade purchase truck. I was merely the one that went out and picked it up, but that's going over with some a drone for a unit that contacted me, and some other bits that, like the teddies that your friend has sent, which is great, which we've added to with a few bits for some of the children. And hopefully I'll be doing more trucks in the future. I'm not sure about the rest of this year, but we'll see how it goes. But just trying to stay as big an advocate as you can. I mean, I've got friends in the Labour Party who, hopefully, if things keep going as they're going, will be, in a much more powerful position in a year or so's time. And again, you just got to keep that laser-like focus on why this matters so much.
Totally, Tom. And yeah, just to touch, so we've got the next Sniffing Brigade convoy next week. You've got a truck there at your place at the moment that's going in it. Tom's driven with a couple of other British guys. I think isn't one of them in his, how old is he? He's in his
the last
he's a
convoy.
legend.
Yeah, he was 79.
79, right? British guy, 79, driving literally from England to Kyiv.
And he was exceptional. I didn't really appreciate until I met him how he'd been over several times previously with different groups and driving different types of vehicles, but he had, within weeks of the start of the war, full-scale war, had gone out and bought a minibus on his own, driven over on his own to just help out bringing refugees back. And you meet so many people who just inspire you to think, how can I do more? Because, not everyone has that ability. You're well aware of, you are privileged to be able to do some of the stuff that you do, but you just hear from some people and you're like, wow, there's hope. Surely there's some hope if these guys are doing this on our side, gotta be.
Awesome guy, just doing stuff. It doesn't matter how big or small it is, but sort of just do something. And his contribution at 79 years old is just exceptional stuff. It is, like you say, it's inspirational. And the Teddies, interestingly, so they're from Naomi, that's been in one of these videos already, right? So her and her mates, and there's this I think it's a retirement home over in Essex, like there's a little knitting army. But she knitted, I think, 60 of those teddies in that box herself. She did 60 herself over the last few months, and they're all, they're going to be for Ukrainian kids that were kidnapped by Russia and are now orphans. I mean, you can't really think of more fitting people to help than children that have suffered that sort of trauma.
Yeah.
Can you really?
No.
I mean,
No.
it's probably the most horrendous thing that can possibly ever happen.
Yeah.
So,
But
you know, and
again, things like that are so, it's such a great thing to do, but it helps you talk about when you're talking to people, the news the other day about another 50 people killed in a missile strike on a village. That's flagged up a bit in the news and then it fades away again. But people kind of don't quite appreciate how it's not just a war, some tanks firing at some tanks and some people in trenches firing at other people in trenches. It's full on war crimes. It's full on barbarity. These aren't just one state fighting another. It's as close to, movie style bad guys. They are the killers and rapists and murderers, and we've got to stop them. I know you can sound like a stuck record, but how can you ever get fed up of talking about stopping the most evil stuff that's happened in Europe for 80 odd years happening?
Completely agree, Tom. I completely agree. I think you say it very well and very succinctly. And I think we all play our little part, and lots of people like us helping can make a little bit of a difference, along with the continued Western and international support, and the Ukrainian people being incredibly resilient and brave fighters on the battlefield. So is there anything else that you'd like to say, Tom, about your life, about the rural life in the UK, the farming communities?
Well, just to give another, I guess, on the farming community shout out, I guess there is another campaign to talk about, which I've engaged with a little bit, which are mainly Scottish-based farmers who have also taken out 200 plus trucks now, all to Lviv with one brigade in particular. So, yeah, it's just those you can feel quite down and alone some of the time with this job, especially when you're back in the UK. And as I've already said, it feels like most people aren't engaged. And then you come across these kind of other efforts that are still going on, and you think, yeah, let's keep this going as much as we can. It does make a difference. It's not going to win the war on its own, but it does a damn sight more than just sitting here feeling down in the dumps about it.
So who is that? That's because they obviously do deserve a massive amount of respect. That is an industrial level of trucks going on.
Yeah, it's Pickups for Peace, and it's a registered Scottish charity, because I think the guy that set it up has business interests in Lviv and did some serious stuff about it when it started. So they've done quite similar to the Sniffing Brigade, driving from mostly Scotland. I mean, that's going a long way.
That is a long way, man.
Yeah, to Lviv. And they've been in the media quite a bit, the farming press. They're in there quite regularly talking about what they're doing. I think at the moment, actually, they're doing a campaign to get fishing nets, because the Lviv regional government have said that they need them for camouflage and protecting their power generation stuff, generators in the winter to stop drone attacks. So yeah, it's incredible. Just the different levels, like you keep saying, the different levels of things that have been done really do, inspire you.
No, it's super cool. And I think so. Well, we look forward to getting you on another convoy soon once you get the necessary paperwork in place with your wife. So and that's
harder than going through any Ukrainian customs.
Yes, mate. Yeah, absolutely. Life is about balances, Tom, isn't it? You've got to keep them in check. Last thing, you've got some sons, haven't you? Have you ever named your trucks, Tom?
Is that called a leading question, I think?
No.
Yes, I have Wilfred and Albert, and there's now, 4 trucks have got, there's a Wilfred 1 and a Wilfred 2 and a Albert 1 and 2. I know one of them's definitely still running. I'm not sure on the other 3, but yeah, a little bit probably, don't know, pompous or whatever, but I put my boys' names on just because it was, it's a big reason why I've got involved the way I have, because it's my kids' world that they're going to grow up in. And so many of these fighters, the Ukrainian guys, are family men themselves. They've got families either directly or everyone's part of a family. And it's just, a way of saying, this is so important. This is our future as well as theirs. and yeah, I've got my son's school, a primary school, involved a little bit as well. I sent out their flag, which the unit sent some pictures back with the fighters at the front with this Sibsey Free School primary flag. But
Amazing.
Which again, and that was mentioned at one of their assemblies at school. And I'm under no illusion that a bunch of 5 to 11-year-olds are going to go skipping home telling their parents about we need to get involved with Ukraine. But it's just to keep it in people's minds and to engage people that otherwise would have not critically but given up thinking about the job, because it needs to be at the front of our minds all the time.
I think it's nice to use your children, because I think, again, you've nailed it, that most people fighting are fighting for their kids or for the next generation. I think the Estonians that obviously we the founders of the 69th Sniffing Brigade, it's very much about being aware of the threat of Russia, having grown up in the Soviet Union, but certainly knowing that if we can't stop this war as quickly as possible in Ukraine, it can spread, and they want to protect their own country and their children. And I think the threat of Russia in Europe on a whole and in the UK is very, very real. And you can only see that just simply by the sheer weight of support the British government and British Armed Forces has put behind it. Degrading our own military capability to hand over weaponry to Ukraine, other way around the world. We're not doing that because in many instances we're nice. We're doing it because the threat to our own nation is very real. And,
and it's like I said, you read history books and you see what happens, and it is a damn sight easier if you could have stopped the war in Czechoslovakia in 33 or 34 or whatever by getting involved there, you'd have done it. Take any time machine and you'd have gone back there straight away. And this is totally the same. You're dealing with the same kind of totalitarian, brutal, murderous, use some other words, dictatorship. You gotta stop them when they've stuck their head in the vice. Let's crush it. Getting fired up now.
There we go. Yeah. Well, Tom, lovely to speak to you, and the stuff that you're doing is great. You're getting reliable pickup trucks out there into Ukraine, and that's what the charity is all about. And I look forward to seeing you standing around by some trucks in the very near future, generally looking suspicious.
Yeah. Well, this is probably only like the third time or so I've actually physically seen your face, isn't it, Alex? Because we corresponded and spoke for like a year before actually meeting at the customs point on the Polish-Ukrainian border. And until that point, I was very suspicious about whether Alex Kinash was real or just some kind of fabricated Estonian frontman. But no, I can confirm that he's a real deal and has done lots of campaigns.
I am actually a real person. Sometimes I've, not quite sure what that means, but yeah, I do exist, and so do you. And thank you very much for your support. And I look forward to turning up at your house unexpectedly sometime and eating your food, because I'm sure, as someone from the farming community, you must do an absolutely lovely roast dinner.
Absolutely, all the time. Permanently roast dinners are just in the oven waiting to go.
Exactly, mate. I mean, that is it. That's it's. You can't really get any more of a stereotypical comment than that, can you? Have a great weekend, Tom.
Will do. Thanks a lot.
I look forward to seeing the teddies arrive next week in Kyiv.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks a lot, mate. Alex. Cheers.
Bye-bye.